Hey, it is time. It is Elevate Your Profits time. And I told you earlier today, okay, I've got the man here. I am very excited about Mike Brooks being with us. But before I get into all that, I've got to bring in my co host in crime here, Tom Ginn. Tom, what do you think about Mike Brooks? Do you know that he is a third degree black belt? I mean, did you know that?
After you shared it with me, and yeah, so yes, and I'm quite impressed with that. So I got some questions around that we'll bring
I
up.
I heard that. I'm afraid to screw up tonight, and there's no telling what he's going to do. But for all of you, and I've got to share this, I told Mike I was going to do this just so you knew or know that I wasn't kidding around. I talked about Kung Fu. This is Master Po. And to me, Mike is like a master poet, what he does. Just real quick, Mike Brooks is the director of sales and marketing at Audit, and that is a software tool that helps IT providers sell. He's got over 20 years experience. And what I liked about Mike, having that martial arts background, he's going to share some real cool insight with us, how he does things, how he approaches it, and he's well known, well versed. If you go on LinkedIn, you're going to bump into him. And you know what? Without further ado, let's bring the man on here. Oh, look at that. Oh, there's the
Is
pose.
that right?
Yeah, that looks good. That looks good.
That's
Mike,
hilarious,
we're
man.
excited to have you here this evening, and thank you so much for being with Tom and myself to share your story and what you're doing out there in the business world.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. It's a pleasure.
Yes, as well. And just to kick this off is it going to be just a sort of a free flow type thing. But I think one of the things that I will be focused. Our whole program, Mike, is really about bringing value, bringing experience in the business world, whether it be in the IT space, whether it be any sort of sales or marketing, or any discipline, because we got a lot of people out there that recognize maybe they want to become an entrepreneur, go become a solopreneur. We got a lot of people out there that are in business themselves, but they're looking for new ways of thinking, new ways to apply. Every business has something to be exchanged in value, and I know you're going to be able to do that tonight. So our audience is going to be diverse. I know you're niched in what you do, but the skills and the things that you do can be applied. You'd probably agree with me in anything that we do because the fundamentals are always the same. So you'll be addressing a wide audience out there with different disciplines, different reasons they're here. So welcome aboard and tonight, and I look forward to get to know more about why you do what you do, more than what you do and how you do it. I think that's the most important thing in business is know why you do what you do. So I'm going to turn back to Mark, and we're going to get you telling your story here.
Okay.
Sure.
And I'm going to say thank you, Scott Rickard, for hopping on. He's number one to say hello to all of us. And thank you so much. Feel free to share this out. As always, before we get into it, I want to thank everybody in advance for being here. And as the comments come in, we'll share them. And as we're talking here, Mike, I do have to ask you, you have a martial arts background, and how did you get into IT? What led you down that road? I mean, I've always been curious about how does one go into IT, but you have the discipline of, and I kiddingly say this, but a master Po, and now you're IT guy. So explain to us how that happened.
Well, I should clear up that I'm not an IT guy. So I'm a sales and marketing guy. I work for a company that's, as you said, is very niche specific. Our client, I'll start with kind of telling you a little bit about our company, right? Our ideal client is what's called a managed service provider. So a managed service provider is a company that does IT for other companies. So if you were let's say you're a lawyer and you've got, 10 employees, you probably aren't ready to go hire a full-time IT department, right? So you would hire an MSP, and they're basically, you're keeping them on a retainer, paying them monthly, and they fill the void of being the IT guy. They are doing help desk support for you. They're installing computers. They're troubleshooting any problems. They're making sure your cybersecurity is a topic we can go down a rabbit hole on. I mean, it's such a crazy world with cybersecurity. So they're doing all those things. They're bringing all those elements, and you might have to hire 3 guys in your company to get the same value and the same tool set that the MSP can bring to you. So those are our clients. So I'm deep into the world of technology, but I'm not a technology guy. Funny enough, I went to college to be an IT guy. Who would have thought? So, like, my first job out of college was working in a company as an IT guy. I was tech support. So I was always, when I came into this niche, I was very familiar with what they did because I started my career in that. Now, I found out within the first month of being tech support that I was terrible at computer stuff, like really bad, like destroy your network bad. And I quickly got out of the IT world and kind of got into more customer centric in an IT department. Hilariously enough, in a bigger company, I was just doing electronic data interchange, EDI, which was in the old days. I think they still have it. It's how companies would talk to each other before the days of being able to do some stuff like this, right? So transferring data. And I was more of a customer interfacing person. So I found out pretty early on I was good with people skills, with those people skills, right? And that's what led me into sales. I always had done something sales centric without even realizing I was in sales. And I think took me a long time, but I realized, I'm a sales guy. I love it. It's what I enjoy, sales and marketing. I'm technically I'm in a marketing position, but I don't do the selling as much anymore. And it's a weird path. I ended up quitting my day job in IT. I turned out I wasn't really good being an employee either. So that's another story.
Okay.
I was a little more entrepreneurial. So I quit my day job and joined my instructor at the time, my best friend, and we became partners, 50-50
cool.
partners to run the martial arts school. So I ran a martial arts school for 10 years and I fell in love with, I realized marketing and sales was my calling. So I deep immersed myself in that stuff. I was in the early days of digital marketing. It was kind of pre-digital marketing. I was doing this internet marketing thing before people knew what that was. And I miss those days because it used to be like, people would ask what I do for the school. I'd say, I do internet marketing. Like, what's that? That sounds like weird hacker, strange stuff. Now it's like everybody knows what it is. And that's what led me here. One day I in the school, I started running a marketing agency out of the school because other people wanted me to do for them what I was doing. So I had a marketing agency. Then I sold my share of the school back to my partner, did my marketing agency from about 2008 until literally 2018. And I found the guys from audit, we met each other and I fell in love with the product. I thought, man, I wish I had a product like that to sell with, because that's what we do. Audit is they use our software to generate a sales presentation. And it's just a magical piece of software. I wish everybody could have access to it because it's amazing, but unfortunately it's only available to IT guys. So that's my long, strange story.
Very cool. I do, and I'll let Tom jump in here. I've got to, Robert Brooker's going to comment on Return of the Jedi, Empire Strikes Back, and he says right here, I must like the poster on the door. So he's looking at your Hans. So I'm just letting people notice.
That's not a poster. I met a bounty hunter, and I had this carbonite. No.
Okay. But our audience is very astute. They'll pick up on things, and I think that's great that you have something like that there in the background. I think that's great. So just wanted to share that with you.
It's a conversation piece. Anything to get people a little off balance. I think that's what sales is all about, right? Is making people taking people off balance and breaking their kind of breaking the concentration. Everybody, in a sales thing, can be very adversarial, right? Like our job is to make them comfortable and laugh and answer our questions and talk to us like a human. So yeah, that's the deal.
And Robert, and then I'll get out of the way here, but he says, I remember surfing the web on my converted Motorola E398, and I bought it as a tri-band. Listen to this. Turned on the fourth transceiver, the 850 MHS band that recently opened up, and then flashed the phone with what's that? ROKR? Yeah, E1 firmware. It was this that I could surf the web without any mention of data changes. Wow. There goes Robert's a brainy mug. So, he'll bring
Robert
stuff in.
hurts my brain.
Yeah, he's a deep thinker.
He's a little techie there. He's really.
Robert, that is awesome. That
almost wonder if he's an IT guy. I'm like,
yeah,
wow.
well, I think he's undercover. He won't tell us. You got to watch those Canadians too, man. You never know. So.
I have something, or you just shared, you went into IT as and found out that wasn't your calling, and martial arts. I always I think anybody that I've been in business for myself a long time. I believe anybody's in martial arts is an Eagle Scout. Those people stand atop of the resume stack. In my opinion, and because they bring a set of disciplines that are transferable in life and in business. You're with what, a third degree black belt?
I stopped, and I haven't practiced for a few years just because I'm old and decrepit. And I'm trying to get myself back in shape so that my bones can handle it. But I stopped at about third degree. Running a martial arts school where you're doing the business stuff and teaching, it's like you kind of don't stop taking care of yourself. So I could have probably have the time in if I had tested and done all those things as a student. I would be maybe fourth or fifth degree, but that's where I am.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So in your martial arts school, you're right. The success in business is marketing. First of all, you got to be able to get your message out there. You figured out that was something you were good at to share out there. But from what did martial arts in some basic fundamentals that could be transferred into a business environment that I think would be important for that you're taken and applied in your life and in your businesses?
There's so much. The tenets of martial arts are things like focus, discipline, courtesy, respect, perseverance, indomitable spirit. It really teaches you. Martial arts is a funny thing. When I remember when I first started, I was in my teens, and I was terrible. You can't do anything, and it's frustrating, right? It kind of breaks you down a little bit, and you realize, especially when you're older, if you have some expertise in a thing, it can be very frustrating because you're used to being able to do well, and it forces you to not be able to do well, and you look foolish. You can't not look foolish, right? And it takes time and takes patience. I remember a black belt I had a bunch of the instructors I was friends with because we were all the same age. And one of them, I wanted to take martial arts because I really wanted to learn how to fight, and I wanted to learn the tradition of it. That's what I really enjoyed. And I wanted to get good fast. So I used to practice with him, and he would just kick me. And I had one kick that I couldn't do. Right. And I'm trying to get him to help me do it. Every time I tried it, I'd fall, and we'd be sparring, and I'd be trying it. I'd do it really slow, and he would just be waiting for me and push me. And and I said to him, I'm like, how the heck? I was maybe my third belt. I'm like, how do you do that? How the heck can you do that? And he just went and pointed through his belt. He's like, held his belt in his hand. He's like, wow. And I didn't quite get what that meant. And it dawned on me a few days later. I'm like, had nothing to do with the belt. It had to do with the fact that he put in the time, did the repetitions, put the work in, and stuck with it. And that's gives you success in anything, right? It's you can be good at anything you want to do. You have to put in the reps.
Yeah.
Right. If you want to be good at prospecting, you got to pick up the phone and make X amount of calls until you get good at it. You just put in the time, put in the reps.
Yeah, you're going to look foolish, sound foolish. You make those mistakes, but you mentioned all those virtues and all those things are so important. And we could spend hours just talking about them applying in business. But you mentioned something, looking foolish. It creates a sense of humility.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think
and it also, you take that with you later. Like, I'll try anything. I'm not afraid to, when it was time to do video, I'd never done video, just like a lot of people have never done video. I know some people are scared to do it, and I'll do it. I don't care. I'll look foolish. I used to go hang out with a lot of internet marketers back when it was kind of underground stuff, and they would do their shows, and I would come and be in the audience as a person. I became friends with some of these guys who hosted events, and they'd call me up on stage because I was doing Facebook before anybody else was doing it for business, or Google search before anybody else was doing it. So I would get called up on stage, and I knew I wasn't prepared, but I would do it anyway, because I'll go up and I'll babble about whatever and try and sound like, and I know through teaching martial arts, most of it is just looking like you know what you're talking about. It's confidence, right? You have to be confident in yourself and hold yourself like an authority, and people will feel that and see that. And even if you're talking out of your butt, I mean, you should know what you're talking about as well, of course. But I'm not afraid to go make a fool of myself, and that just comes back to when I was a white belt and looked like an idiot and falling on the ground, and it's from that. It's all from that.
I'll share this and I'll turn it back to Mark. My wife's cousin is a former national Taekwondo champion. He says the only difference between a white belt and a black belt is the black belt never gave up.
Right. A black belt is a white belt that never quit.
Yeah.
Exactly it. There's no magic behind black belt. There really isn't. It's putting in the reps, putting in the time, and never stopping.
Yeah, we all can become champions. We all can become black belts in parables there. But so go ahead, Mark.
No, this is good. This is all good stuff. And that's why I like having Mike. See, he's so calm. I mean, Mike, you would make a great umpire. I umpire, and your persona, I mean, that's how you got to be when you're out there behind the plate. Yeah, you just got to be like, hey, you got to let that play go. If they're screaming at you, hey, let's go on to the next one. No big deal. Did you umpire?
I used to, not umpire baseball, but I did it in martial arts. I used to
always
referee.
Cool.
I used to referee and judge tournaments and
outstanding.
You have to do that. I'm not patient like that at everything. I can lose my temper like that.
Right.
Say the wrong thing to me, I can get set off. But it's usually has to do with work. Like I have when it comes to work, sometimes I think I may have a problem with authority. But I do respect it, and I'm just teasing a little bit, but yeah, I have to control myself sometimes.
As you and Tom were talking, I always throw this out there, and I'm sorry, but since I umpire, the term "fail your way to success." A lot of people don't like hearing this. Like, you go 1 for 3 in baseball or whatever it is, and you do have to fail first to learn. Like you were saying, I didn't feel comfortable when I was starting out in martial arts. I felt like an idiot when I was trying to do things, or my instructor was trying to take me to the next level. Nobody likes to feel uncomfortable, or you pick up the phone and make calls. And, we all remember our first calls, or, it could be even when you met your wife, your significant other, whatever, when you ask them out on a date, or just all those things. What do you think about that term, fail your way? It's not that you want to fail, but I think you got to keep things in perspective. And like, I would love to be like a Jeffrey Gitomer or a Ken Walls and have, all these people following, but you got to start somewhere. Tom and I didn't really start doing this till like a year ago. I didn't even know if I was ever going to do this, and COVID kind of propelled me into this arena. So, and I remember I was horrible when I first did this, but that's how we all learn. And I see you on LinkedIn, and you're so like suave and sophisticated, and you're talking all this knowledge out there. But does that make sense to you about, you got to learn how to fail, and then you learn from that and then build on it?
I think we all need to. we need to put failure in perspective. Like failure doesn't always mean failure.
Right.
Like, and you know, my daughter's a good example of this maybe here. You know, she's a perfectionist. She's a really good student, which she definitely didn't get from me. She's honors, you know, like amazing, smart, and she's a music major.
Oh, cool.
Which is why you see that that bass there is hers, borrowing it. I took it, but she was in a class that was really, really hard on her. She's going to be a senior next year, and she took this class as an elective, and it turned into like a monster for her. And she was a lot of writing, which she's good at. But what would happen is the professor would, number one, hold her to a higher standard because she was an honor student. And he gave her a hard time. He gave all the honor students a hard time. Every time she gave a paper in to him, he would turn it back to her and say, you need to do this, this, and this, and here's what's wrong. And she looked at it as this massive failure. I'm like, it's not a failure. That's what an editor does. You know, if you were working in a newspaper, you were a writer, you would submit it to an editor, you would get it back with corrections to take it to the next level to help you make it better. That's not failure. And turns out the professor at the end of the year was like, wanted to submit her writings to some kind of award. He was,
oh, wow.
And I think she learned that lesson. It's like, it's not about failure, right? Like if you get up and strike out in baseball, that's not a failure. That's just part of the game, right? So we have to understand what is failure. And I think 9 times out of 10, failure is not what we think it is. Whatever that thing that happened that makes you feel like you failed doesn't mean you failed. It just means that you needed more help. You needed more time. You needed to take another at bat. It's just, that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
Yep. Tremendous. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So you play that instrument as well, right?
I play it not well. I play it as well. I play the electric bass. Yeah, when I was a kid, this will age me, right? This will tell you how old I am. I was like a kid when the band Kiss was really popular, so I was a big Kiss fan. And I wanted to be Gene Simmons, and I learned how to play the bass and played rock and roll for a little bit when I was a teenager. And since then, I have adopted big fan of jazz. I love jazz, and I've always, the jazz bass just is compelling to me because it's a challenge. I don't understand how they play the way they play and what they play. It's like a different language. So I started taking jazz bass lessons.
Oh, wow.
That's where that big bass came from. My daughter, actually, this was her semester with a bass, and I'm going to keep it. So I've inherited it.
Wonderful. You know, and I admire anybody that has been in martial arts and Eagle Scouts and the discipline it takes. Anybody who plays an instrument. I love music, but I got a story about that I won't share with you. But I definitely don't have that acumen to be playing.
Yes, you do.
Or dancing.
Yes, okay. You do. That's the thing. Is like that's the deal. Is you can literally do anything you set your mind to. I'm telling you, man. You know, I told you I'm not doing martial arts anymore because I feel like I'm too old for it, but I'm not. It's just an excuse. That's all it is. I'll be honest with myself. I was, you know, my doctor, because I'm you know, not as young as I used to be. My doctor's like, you need to walk 30 minutes a day, but my hip was bothering me. And I felt like I diagnosed myself. I'm like, it has to be from the martial arts, from all the years of kicking. I probably need hip surgery. I didn't want to get surgery. I was frightened of it. So instead of exercising, I just kind of walked away from everything. And I'm like, I'm going to do it during the pandemic. I was like, I'm going to walk 30 minutes a day and force myself through the pain to walk. And if I need hip surgery, I'm going to have it. And guess what happened after about 2 weeks of walking?
The pain went away.
The hip pain went away. And I realized the hip pain was happening because I wasn't exercising.
Right.
So now I could have ended up with hip surgery, but that is what it is, right? So I realized that was another lesson in life, right? Like you just gotta, you can do anything. We can all do anything. We can, you know, if you don't have rhythm, you can still learn how to dance. I don't care. You can learn how to sing. If you don't know how to sing, you can do it. Anybody can do it.
And Tom, Robert says, actually, Tom, with the software available now, you could still compose your own music. So how about that?
I'm all in now. Okay, you got it. There we go. There's hope here.
Absolutely.
At least I'll just play in my home here, so that at least I entertain my wife. But I have a question for you. I started to watch one of your videos on LinkedIn, and we would definitely want to make sure how people get a hold of you, find out more about what you do. But you said something, the mistakes of prospecting. Do you have any key points there? Because part of business, people may be good at what they do. They may be geniuses at it, but they're fearful of prospecting, or if they do prospect, they're not doing it the right way. If you'd like to just share some of your thoughts, wisdoms, and things that could help the audience out here.
Yeah, prospecting is a scary thing, and I said in the blog post and on that show, nobody likes prospecting. I don't care. Even Jeffrey Gitomer, if you put him on Truth Serum, I bet you he would say, yeah, I don't like prospecting. I mean, who does? Who likes picking up the phone or sending I think phone prospecting we fear the most. Interrupting somebody's day, walking into somebody's business. I remember sitting in my martial arts school when, bankers or financial planners would walk into my business and bug me, and I hated it. And I feel like I don't want to do that to anybody else. And there is absolutely that feeling for everybody. That's normal. Maybe Jeffrey Gitomer is a rare exception, that 1% of the population. But I think you either hate prospecting or you're a psychopath. That's my opinion. So, it's important, right? And if picking up the phone and listen, I think the boiler room days of prospecting are behind us.
Sure.
Smile and dial, getting 100 dials in a day can be really, I don't know that that's the right way to do it anymore. I think there has to be a balance. To me, personal branding on LinkedIn, being active on social media, making sure you've got content flowing. That's really, really important. And it gives you tools to be able to reach out to people, excuses to be able to reach out to people, local networking, getting into a networking group. Whenever somebody has always ever asked me about what do I do to market my business, first thing I tell them is get into a BNI group or a networking group or a chamber, meet people and start to build and, basically farming as opposed to hunting. And eventually you got to go out and hunt as well. But warm people up, get people into your funnel, into your content, and then you've got reasons to go out and interrupt them. But I think we all have to get over it so that was one of my mistakes is, letting the fear control us and not doing prospecting because we're afraid to do it. Being consistent, being persistent, not taking no for an answer, just doing it. I think, a lot of people overanalyze, right? Like you probably know this, that it's real easy to go, okay, I'm going to prospect now. It's 8 o'clock in the morning. You do your research. And then at 10 o'clock, you're done doing your research. And now you're like, I better go answer some emails. So you just pick up the phone and call somebody, even if it's just say, hey, I'm Mike from so-and-so business. You're a business. I'm a business. Love to network with people. Can I buy you a cup of coffee or just chat and see if we can refer business back and forth? How hard is that? Right. Like, so right. Those are my thoughts on that. I think, right. There's more to it. I mean, we could, talk about it for hours, but I think those are the key things that I think are pretty important.
Yeah. I think prospecting, we all encountered at different levels, at different times times during the day. Is that fear of rejection and all those things that come in, the psychological things. And I'm a personal development coach. I work with people to understand identifying those fears and how to change the mindset to that.
Yep.
But it's only through action do you build the confidence.
Exactly. And I think what you do is probably one of the most important places really for people to start is get your mind right. Talk to somebody, listen to an expert and get your head excited, like get yourself excited, get yourself pumped up. That positive affirmation thing can be weird and I'm not like I'm not really that life coachy type of how do I explain it? Like, I don't necessarily believe in some of the things that you'll hear out there. I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but you need it to a certain extent, right? You need somebody feeding you positivity and getting you motivated and pumped up. And sometimes just looking yourself in the mirror and saying, I can do this. You can do this, right? Like it just gets you started. And then once you get started, I think it's kind of like jumping in the pool, right? Like you're in, may as well keep doing it. Even if starts to that positivity may start to wear off, but once you're in the work, I think it's getting into the pool.
Yeah, you said something very important there, is the right mindset. And some of it most of it's been programmed into us. And if it's not serving the end results, we just need to, reach out, like you said, and find somebody that can help you identify through awareness. How do you shift that thinking? So you think, anybody out there that's in sales and marketing or whatever, is a lot of people get hung up on systems, products, applications. If I have more of applications, I'm going to become successful. I see people have the best systems in the world and not succeeding. So would you think that's a, place to start, your belief system?
He's muted.
Mike?
I hit the mute button.
Oh, that's okay. I didn't do it.
I'm waving my arms around. I hit the mute button on the microphone.
That's okay. Cool.
Yeah, what you're talking about, Tom, is spot on. Again, with what you do for folks is really the place to start. Is get your mind right, get some training, get some coaching. Whether you're hiring somebody like you or plugging into your content. Right? Like when you put, I know you do content and listening to things like this and your stuff so that you can get excited about what you're doing, get motivated, jump in and do it. And don't get caught up in, I need this or I need that. Cause those are just excuses that are stopping us, right? Like I can't do it if I don't have Zoom info and my boss won't get me Zoom info. So that becomes an excuse and a crutch. You can do things by simply doing things and just get in there and you understand, you start to understand what your industry, how you got to do it for your industry. Everybody's a little different, right? Like, so for example, if you're in the consumer sector, right? Like you're selling financial planning to consumers, not businesses, you can't just pick up the phone and call people because they're probably all on the do not call list. You got a whole set of other legal things, right? If you're in the European Union or Canada, you can't just email people and spam them in different parts of the world the way you can in the United States of America. God bless the USA. You can spam people away. You've got to understand how you need to deliver your message and get out there and do it. In the IT world, I tell my guys, you're a business to business. You can pick up the phone and call. You can stop into a business and it's people overcomplicate it, right? Like, so people look at prospecting as, oh my God, I got to ask this person for an appointment, or I've got to try and sell this person something. No, you don't. You can call them up and go, hey, I'm Mike from Joe's IT company, and I'd love to send you this white paper we did on cybersecurity. It's really, really important. Is it okay if I email this to you? How hard? That's so right. Non-confrontational, or you call somebody up, you say, hey, I'm just updating my database. Is Jimmy Joe Bob still the CEO of the company? What's his email address again? I want to shoot him an email. Just say hi. I mean, there's ways you can do those things that are so easy, so soft touch. Yeah, hopefully that answers your question. I got thrown off by muting myself.
Oh. No, you're spot on, Mike. I'm learning from you as I'm listening. So you're bringing a lot out there in a perspective that's important for people. So, yeah, Mark, what do you got up your sleeve?
Well, just listening to what Mike's talking about, and getting your mind right. Is there anything that you do? Like we all know the man himself. The JG, the Get Bit man, Jeffrey talks about reading, writing, meditating, getting some quiet time. And I don't say you chant, maybe you do, but I do take some time of my day to just flush and deprogram and just, hey, I'm taking more walks. I'm feeling great. Plus I'm umpiring, over the weekend. And, like I'm like, my productivity I notice a change, my
Yeah.
brain's feeling good. And I'm just like, hey, you're going to say no to me? That's cool. No big deal. I don't geek up and get all wound up about it. Sometimes I'll laugh, because I do pick up the phone and have to call people. It's kind of funny, businesses. And sometimes they even hang up on you, and that's okay.
Sure.
It's not me, it's them, because they're having a foul mood. I know today is Monday, so some people, they're just in a gloomy doomy. It could be Friday for some, and they'd still be complaining about something. But
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely. And you're never gonna escape that. I mean, it is what it is. But yeah, I follow a lot of JG's stuff. I mean,
Right.
I was doing that. He always advocated reading every day, and I do that.
Yes.
I read. I make sure I read 30 minutes every day. I start my day off that way.
Cool.
And I'm reading sales books or marketing books, or I love studying persuasion and psychology.
Okay.
A lot of behavioral economics is one of my favorite things. I love the science of sales that has kind of come out in the past few years, the past decade or so. A ton of great books on that stuff. And I love reading the studies that really just prove Jeffrey Gitomer and the people like him who have been saying this is what you should do for years. It really proves that the things that they've been teaching for 100 years on how to sell are actually true, and it teaches you why they're true. So I read 30 minutes a day, and then I write. I don't do it the way Jeffrey does. He talks about reading and writing separately.
Mm-hmm.
I read and write while I'm reading. Like as soon as a note comes to me, I just pick up my phone. I time myself. I stall the timer and I start writing notes out, and I mark the book up. Sometimes there's like books on my shelf that have all these like tab, little notes
Tabs,
inside of the
right.
book. And so I'm always writing while I'm reading, and I do a lot of writing because I consider myself a content marketing person. Content is my forte. So I do a ton of writing.
That's great.
Yeah,
man.
that's an important thing you say. Me being a personal development is when a person utilizes this in anything they're doing, there is a science behind it. What it does, it unlocks and changes how you think and opens up creativity.
Yeah,
there's a lot of science that I've studied, and this is your genius. I call this.
Yeah, 100%.
And you've studied with Jeffrey Gitomer. You mentioned earlier. Who are some of the biggest influence you've had in your life that you probably have somebody in the martial arts, you may have some other bit. Who are some of your influencers? So people that you've bonded to that resonate with you that you would recommend people at least look into? Anybody specific?
It's always been about the books for me. Like I'm a big reader of these business books. I've got like tons and tons of them, and I would say the big ones for me, there's 3 books that really changed everything for me. The first one was How to Win Friends and Influence People. I'm sure you guys know. I read that. I reread that. I listened to it on tape.
Sure.
That changed my life. It taught me how to sell. I mean, it's the secret of selling. Every sales book I think that came after it is derivative of it almost. The other book that really changed the game for me was a book called The Ultimate Sales Letter by Dan Kennedy.
Okay, yeah.
To understand how marketing in print works, he's the godfather, one of the godfathers of that. Direct response copy is something that I've studied hard, and I'm not great. I'm still not great at it, but I love it, and I think it's the way you have to approach. You have to have a direct response mindset when you create content. Like, how do I get people's attention? How do I get them to keep reading? How do I grab their interest? How do I call them to action? And then the third book is Influence by Cialdini.
Who's that? I didn't hear
Robert
that.
Cialdini.
Yeah.
influence is, he wrote that back in probably the 90s. And it was probably the first book on that behavioral economics or cognitive, kind of that study of people, why people do what they do. And he wrote it to really help people understand how not to be influenced and by marketers, by salespeople. But in doing that, he became he was, for marketers, everybody knows him. If you're a marketing person,
right,
he's built a huge audience. So he did exactly what he didn't want to do. He just released his new version of that book, which I highly recommend everybody get, because he put 200 extra pages in it. He put a lot of work in the notes. I've never read endnotes so diligently like I have with this book. It's really a great version of that book to get.
Yeah, and that, I think, just understanding human nature, psychology. Marketers are the master of understanding how we operate, right? It's a science, and if we know that, we become more effective in our communications to influence people in a path that's to their benefit. I don't believe in manipulation and all those type of things, but anybody that's out there, understand you first. If you do that, you can understand other people as well. So
yeah,
I'm going to definitely get that book.
Yeah, it's a great book. I look like I'm looking over.
You are, because Robert wrote a book. Robert has a tendency to write
put it
books.
Up. You can put it back up.
Well, I got to share it because it's about what you talked about.
Yeah, put it back. I want to do like I'm going.
I paid a very, look at Mike's hopping around. He said, I paid a very authentic compliment after I followed one of the exercises. Jeffrey, he's talking about Jeffrey Gitomer, reading out loud from the Little Red Book of Selling, and did add some color as the lesson directed. It was watching the recording that I realized how beautifully Jeffrey writes, because Jeffrey writes the way he speaks. And I was on a video call with Ken asking him, why didn't he tell me how beautifully Jeffrey writes? And Ken was not sure why I was asking, so I could see that on his face. And then Jeffrey stepped into the office. I hadn't known he was, God, and he's just writing a journal. We'll get into that later on.
The Little Red Book is like a classic. I love that book. That's another one that I reread again and again and again. Great stuff.
And you brought up a great point there, Mike. It's a classic, and it's so simplistic, but it's so profound what's in there, the content. You can apply it today, and you know that, I know that. I always like pulling up my books all marked up and beat up. I'll never forget when I got my copy. I was in Dallas airport maybe like about 15 years ago, I guess, and I saw it, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to get this book. And then I read it nonstop to a sales meeting. I won't mention the name of the company, and my powers to be thought I was an idiot for reading that book, because we were getting sales training, and I was like, well, this isn't what I read about, but my boss more or less said, you need to get rid of that book. I said, I'm not getting rid of the book. I just paid for it.
Get rid of you guys.
Yeah.
Mark said it, you said it, and it's a key point as well as simplicity.
Yeah. Well, that's why I was attracted to, that's what I talk about a lot, because the company audit, we create our, it's software, and our IT guys go out. If they're going to sell somebody, they go out and they have to do fact finding. So they would come into your place and they would look at all your equipment and they would ask you questions. And then they use our system to generate a report that they sell with. And it's all about simplicity. And it makes it really dead simple. It takes away all the tech talk and it puts it in visual, simple language. And simple is what sells. That's probably the most important thing you can do as a professional when you're selling is put yourself in the buyer's shoes and figure out ways to make sure you talk to them in their language so that they don't have to ask you what you mean by that. It has to be simple. Otherwise, they're going to ignore you. They're not going to be paying attention to you. They're going to be too embarrassed. A lot of them would be too embarrassed to ask you, well, what did you mean by that? I don't understand that. So there's simplicity is key.
Yeah, I agree. And, in the prospecting, you mentioned it earlier, I'm just picking up some of the things you said is processes you do should be doing. Could you elaborate a little bit about on research? What are the things that you look for? Your target, your niche, who you want to target. But what are some of the key things that you look for to be able to relate to that person quicker on a personal level? What do you look for when you do a LinkedIn, Facebook, whatever? What are things that you look for in research, setting up your?
You don't want to you don't want to be stalker creepy, right?
Yeah.
Like you want to sound natural and human. Like I always hate I got an email last week, I think it was, where somebody told me that they obviously researched me on LinkedIn. They're like, hey, I'm reaching out to WestCon. I went to Western Connecticut State University. They're like, I'm reaching out to people who went alumni of Western Connecticut and giving them an opportunity to try. And then he went into his sales pitch. It was like he just inserted that there. There's no rhyme or reason. It's like, well, why did you go to WestCon? I can see you didn't go to WestCon because I looked at your profile. You have nothing to do with it. You're not connected to anybody I know. It's like, that's so forced. So I'm just looking to try and understand a little bit about who that person is, really. Like I usually I'll look at the company, number one, and I do the people search on the company because I'm selling to companies, right? And I know our ideal client is either a CEO who is sales centric or a salesperson in an IT company. So I'm looking to see how many employees they have. If they have a certain amount of employees, it's too big. If they have too little employees, it's too small. And then if I know that they don't have a salesperson, I want to look for evidence that person is interested in selling. If they're just interested in technology and buttons, I don't want to bother with them. I'm not going to, because now I need to convince them that they need to make it simple and they need to use persuasion. I don't want to convince them of that. So I want to look at their blog posts. I want to see what they're writing about. I want to see how they're talking in social media, how they comment, just to get a flavor for what kind of person this is. And I'm making guesses. It sounds like this person talks like a normal person. A lot of IT guys talk like they're Vulcans, Mr. Spock. And the ones who don't talk like Mr. Spock are going to be more prone to be more people oriented. And ideally they'll like our system because they get that they need to be not Vulcan with people. So I'm looking for those things. Of course, I want to look at the profile to see, do we have any interests in common? But that's almost an aside. Like I would never call somebody and go, oh, I see you like fishing. Unless I'm an avid fisherman, why would I do that? Why would I do that anyway without getting to know somebody? It's just creepy, right? But so I'm just really trying to do a little detective work and understand what kind of person this is.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. That's important in that, and keeping it simple. And I like not stalking, not spamming,
right?
But you come from a place of what? Interest in them, I think would that be the most? How can you do your real interest in them, not about?
Yeah, you're interested in making sure that they're the right person and that you can help them. So you're doing some qualifying, but you're trying to understand how you should talk to them, and that does come from a place of being curious about people. I think the more curious you are about people, the more you can read that stuff. People put it all out there. You can tell immediately what kind of person they are, especially with if you get on their Facebook feed and they're talking about politics and stuff. It's really easy to see where they fall on the spectrum. And you talk to people when you speak to people, and if you read the book Influence, you'll understand that you want to mirror people to a certain extent, right? And it's not just about like imitating, mirroring, like imitate. If they cross their arms, you cross their arms, but you're mirroring the like things. Like if they're talking about politics, maybe you talk about the same kind of, not forced, but you're trying to understand what do we have, what kind of commonalities we have, what kind of language should I use, should I be a person, or they look like they're a very reserved person? Because they're a reserved person and I'm yelling at them like alpha male, I'm going to turn them off. So it's really just, I look at it as being a detective. I mean, I know I'd love to say, yeah, I'm doing it because I'm interested in people and I'm interested. If let's be honest, if I was interested in doing it to talk to people, I would be just, I'd be hanging out with people that I want to be friends with, right? Like I'd be looking for more social stuff. I'm hunting. I'm doing some detective work, because that's how we make our living. And I don't think anybody should be ashamed of that. Like we're not doing it to be manipulative. We just want to understand the right way to talk to a person, because that's going to be beneficial to open the lines of communication, and it comes down to one of the things, I think one of the first things I said, the mistakes people make with prospecting is not understanding your own value in what you sell. Like we get caught up in that, right? Like we're trying to sell something and we're so focused on what we do, we forget that the thing that we're selling is really, really valuable to them. It's really going to help them. And I have to do everything I can in my power. If I want them to become happily involved in this thing that can really help them, I have to do everything I can to open that lines of communication. And that means using some persuasion tactics, using some influence tactics, using those tools that we have, not to manipulate, but to open up that communication so that we're flowing. That makes
Mark,
sense.
I just want to ask him, you're probably quite aware of Simon Sinek.
A little bit. I'm not a big Simon Sinek person, but I've listened to him. I think,
The reason I brought that up is that, this is something I've learned, through years. There's other companies that probably have similar type of products and or services out there. What's the differentiation is really your why. You mentioned your virtues, your values, those type of things. If you're coming from that space, people really care about why you're doing what you're doing. You think that's an important factor in your communication, not what you do and how you do. That's a process later. Once you build the why in there. I'm a big Simon Sinek guy, and I study a lot of his stuff, and a couple other mentors I use on understanding why and how do you communicate that. So I think you said it, virtues and values in your communication is your why. That bonds people in trust right away.
Yeah. Again, it comes down to belief in your thing that you're selling. When I was selling martial arts lessons, I believed I wasn't approaching it like a business. I believed that if your kid took martial arts, they're going to do better in school. They're going to not get bullied. They're going to learn how to face failure. They're going to be a better person in life and get into better college. It changes their life. And you almost become cultish about it in a way. Like you'd be crazy not to sign up at our school. And right. Here's all the ways we're the best ones out there to do that. And that excitement comes through in the work you do then to prepare to sell somebody, right? Like I use a lot of influence and ways to not manipulate, but lead the person in the right direction to allow them to make the right decision. If you look at it and take a step back and you go, wow, he's employing all these techniques of persuasion, and it's all about trying to close the sale and trick these people into signing up. No, it's making it so that it's real easy for them to, as a mentor of mine in the martial arts school world said, is become happily involved in the martial arts. We're not selling people. We're helping them become happily involved. And sometimes we're saving their business. We're saving their life. We're changing their life. We're impacting them. And if you don't believe in your product to that point, maybe time to get a new product to rep.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
I've done that. I've left businesses and opportunities behind when I didn't believe in the business. If I don't believe in what I'm selling, I'm not selling it. Because I have to bring that passion to it. I have to believe in it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, Mike, just real quick, Ron Goodwin, I know you know him, says, hi, Mike, another friend of Paul Harris. So you guys are kind of from the same sector here. So I just thought Ron's a good man. I always like Ron Goodwin. There's another guy full of knowledge, definite.
Well, that's awesome.
Like Jeffrey says, people don't like to be sold, but they love to buy. Yes, there's that quote. And thank you, Robert, for sharing that so much. Thank you.
Yeah. So I assume that Ron is a Rotarian because Paul Harris is a old Rotarian.
I probably wouldn't doubt it. Ron's done so much. He's got his own business as well.
Yeah, I believe, and I'm not, maybe Ron can tell, I was in Rotary for about 10 years. And Paul Harris, you became a Paul Harris Fellow if you were in for a long time, did a lot of stuff. There's a prestigious, I believe, if I'm getting, maybe it's been a long time since I've been.
Something else I heard, I don't know where I got it, but were you involved in Kiwanis?
For a little bit of time. So I was in Rotary for a long time. I tried Kiwanis for about a year because a friend of mine was in it and he was trying to pull me in it, but I was really in the Rotary Club. Actually, I believe Paul Harris probably founded.
He was the founder, and Ron just put up here, founder of Rotary, and you were on the right path there, Mike.
Yeah, I knew it was, and that's to show you how long it's been for me. But yeah, as soon as I heard that name, rang a bell. One of these days I'll get back to it. I love, and I got into Rotary like anything else because I was looking for networking opportunities, and opportunities to build your business. Now, once you get pulled into that world, it's a lot of work because you're volunteering and you're doing a lot of things. I ended up having to travel for what I do now. So it just wasn't right for me now, but I'll be back to Rotary once I retire one day.
Ronnie says to you, you got it. And I'm proud to be a Paul Harris Fellow.
Awesome.
That's great, Ronnie. Thank you so much.
Awesome.
I always like when Ron hops on. He always throws out some wisdom here. I knew sooner or later he'd climb on board. You started talking about Rotary. I'm like, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he's been involved and knows the guy here.
That's cool.
Yeah.
A lot of Eagle Scouts, like I would say the Rotary Club, like people who became Eagle Scouts are attracted to those kinds of things. I don't know if it was just Rotary, but it was like almost any leader in Rotary was an Eagle Scout that I knew.
Wow.
Yeah,
wow.
I always wished I did I didn't do Boy Scouts, but I always would, like the kids who end up getting Eagle Scout. It's like you said, Tom, that's something.
Yeah, I recently in some of my readings and stuff is, building teams and that, what you should be looking at. This is what I found out. These two elements, anybody in martial art and anybody's an Eagle Scout gets moved up into the top 5% of all applicants.
That's amazing.
Because there's a demonstration of a discipline and virtues and all things that good leaders are looking for.
Wow.
So
well, I haven't had a job in a long time. I have a job, but I haven't had a job, right? Like, so if I have to do a resume again, I'll make sure to put my black belt stuff on the resume.
Seriously, there's that research behind it. In identifying your profiles and who do you want to have in your team. Those are the types of people that you want in your business. So
it's awesome.
It goes a long way. I forgot exactly where I got that research, but it's pretty powerful to know. Especially if anybody that's out there, if you're building teams, go deeper than just their education and some of those things, because there's other disciplines that have, in my opinion, may have more value than a discipline you got from a school. And I'm not putting down education whatsoever, but life experience. Yeah. So, man, I'm having a good time with you, Mike. I really look forward to the opportunity to get to know you in other ways as well.
I told you you'd like them, so.
Well, thanks,
and
guys.
I just want to say this, Mike, seriously, that's why I've always enjoyed listening to your content on LinkedIn, because of the simplicity factor for me. And you cut it down to the nth degree where you can relate to people. And that's what you're doing. And
I learned in martial arts.
I truly appreciate you doing that. That just reiterates in my skull, hey, this is how you got to be, Mark, just talk to people and have a conversation,
Right. Love it. That's awesome. Well, thanks, man. I appreciate it.
I've only got one more thing, and then I don't know where we're at on your time, a hard stop or whatever. You mentioned something, I'm just good taking notes, and I look at my notes and it just triggers a thought, and I went, to help clarity. You said in this process of prospecting and building your brand, your personal brand, giving more free something. So people don't believe that, there's, why should I give something away? Have you read the book called The Go Giver?
Yep.
Have you? Okay.
Yeah. Great book.
Very strong principle.
Awesome. Awesome book.
Yeah. So anybody out there, that's a principle that you should apply in business, is that you give without expectation and it'll come back to you.
Yeah. Well, when you read Influence, you'll know that one of the laws, it's 6 laws of influence. Actually, he added a 7th. The second law of influence is reciprocity. And there's a ton of science behind that. I mean, you can abuse it like anything, but the fact is, like, if I come to your door and I bring you a gift or a 6-pack of beer, whatever it is, you are going to feel like compelled to want to return that gift, right? And people experience this without realizing it. Like, you ever see, or you've been in this situation where somebody tries to give you something and you don't accept it because you don't want to feel, if you take it, you are going to be indebted to return the favor. And
right. So
sometimes people subconsciously reject that because subconsciously they know, I don't want to be indebted to this person. It is a strong pull, and doing that, giving is really, really works. But you have to do it. Service above self. That's the Rotary motto.
Hey, Ron, thanks for sharing. Yeah.
Appreciate it, Ron.
It has to be genuine. That's what I was going to say. Yeah, it has to be genuine. Otherwise, it'll feel like a trick.
Yeah.
And Robert wrote another novel.
I
There's a person I know that was systematically bullied all through high school and growing up with that too. I heard something about a lifelong study done on a group of people in Switzerland, and I had mentioned this to him, and he is very hard on himself, just to let him know that it was an after effect of bullying, and it was suggested that getting the white paper of that study might help. So I did go get that. Okay, cool.
It's awesome.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, Robert, I don't know how he does it, but he writes novels when he makes a statement. And I'm not making fun of you, Robert. And they're very deep, so he'll keep you on your toes.
That's cool. I love it. I love the fact that you got people, you got a lot of people on here who are interacting. That's great. And that's the sign that you're doing something right. That's one of the signs. It's hard to, you guys were saying, it's like you do this and you wonder, is this working? Is this driving? It is, you're impacting people, and it's not about the numbers. It's about things like this, like the conversations you're having with people. These are really important.
Yeah.
So great job. That's testimony to your show.
Right. Well, thank you. Daham, do you have anything else? Because I really don't. I don't want to spoil the moment because, Mike has, I don't know, man. For me, you knocked it out of the park. I know you. I never met you face to face, but you are the epitome of what you see is what you get with Mike. I know if I met you in a crowd, the way you're conducting yourself, that's how you handle yourself. I can just tell. And that's what attracted me to you initially. I said, look at this guy, man. He's just, he's smart, but he doesn't come across that way. He knows what he's doing, but he just kind of simplifies it, and he doesn't make a big deal about it.
Right. And you too, the same thing, Mark. You have always popped up on my radar. We've always talked behind the scenes, and, it's because you're always out there and you're always either commenting or either doing the content. Like, I keep seeing you. So that's what, I feel like I've known you for years, and that's what this does, Yeah. So, yeah. And Tom, I'm just meeting you tonight, and now I feel like I know you. It's great. You guys do a great job. Great show.
Well, thank you.
Thank you very much. Anything else? Any parting thought?
I just want to say thank you so much, Mike, for giving us an hour of your time, because time you can't bring it back. And I get that, and being the giver that you are unselfish, and now it makes sense. You're a Rotary guy, you were a Kiwanis guy, so it's all adding up in my little mind up here. I just want to say thank you so much, and you know,
Thank
we
you.
love you and everybody else out here. I just want to say thank you for being with us this evening, because they didn't have to be here either, and I totally respect your time. And everybody that's making comments, thank you again. I can't thank you enough.
Great stuff.
Could you put up real quick how they can reach them? Just, you know,
Yes,
Twitter,
that is
LinkedIn,
the one
whatever
thing we
they
want to
want.
do for you, my friend.
Yeah,
And-
LinkedIn is, you know, you may have the other ones, but LinkedIn's where I'm the most active. So if you, I'm Mike S. Brooks at most places. I think
Okay.
Michael S. Brooks
Okay.
on Twitter, but I'm not very active on Twitter anymore.
Okay,
I'm
but
tweeted
there
at.
you go. There you go. If you go out there,
You should play your bass on Twitter. That way you'll get a bigger following. So
yeah.
Right.
Or maybe he'll start doing TikTok, you know, and saying, "Hey, check this out," you know.
Yeah,
But,
you know, weird little things like that. Those are the networks for them. You know, they're just doing weird things on them. That sometimes those are the ones that catch fire the most.
And Ron's saying thank you to you, Mike, and so is thank you guys. This has been very enjoyable. Robert, thank you. And Ron says, I will get the rest on the replay. Well, thank you, Ron. I appreciate that. And that's another thing, guys. If you want to share it out, because this thing's out there, feel free, and it'll be out there, and you know, on replay, someone else will pick up on this too, Mike. So that's the other good thing about this.
Yeah, absolutely. Content is key, man. I mean, this, you know, this is what you got to do. And it's fun. I mean, this is
Right.
like fun. This was the best hour of my day. So
Right. And
Oh, thank you.
that's, I'll conclude on this. Did you ever think in your wildest dreams you'd be doing something like this one day, what we're doing? I mean, you know, here we are live streaming like this. You know what I'm saying? It's
Yeah.
kind of weird, isn't it? I mean, I
it
didn't.
is. It's, you know, I've been doing this stuff for a long time. I started doing YouTube videos for the martial arts school back in 2000. I don't even remember, early 2000s, when these networks
you
first
were
started
ahead
coming.
of the curve.
He was, yeah.
So I always wanted to do this kind of stuff. I had tried to do this stuff back years ago when it was like really, really hard and impossible. And there was a system I used to use with internet marketing guys that was designed. It was like this. It was a pioneer, and you could be on video. And it was a lot of years ago. It went away, but all this new technology now makes it much, much easier.
Yes.
So I had hoped I didn't know I was going to do it, but I had hoped I could do it.
Amen to that. I think we're all in that same boat. Hey, I'm still trying to learn how to do this and get it right, Mike. You know, it's
Right.
totally, every day is a new adventure out there.
Yeah, just keep doing it.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
are we complete? We'll put them. Enjoy. You know, we'll put you in the green room if you're able to stay a couple more minutes.
Sure.
Yeah,
we'll
yeah.
Just to hang in here.
You got it.
Mark and I will be wrapping up and doing some announcements as well. So,
Right.
Cool.
are we ready?
Yeah, I'm going to put you in a green room here. We'll come right back to you. Thank you again, Mike, for
Thanks, guys.
everything. All right. Man, that was awesome. You know, what can I say? There's a guy, you know, I got to know him. Actually, it all started with the Seller Die Hard, you know, the Seller Die Hard podcast and that group before it was 959. That's how I got to know Mike. And then just, you know, like we interacted every now and then. And he's a quality individual,
Absolutely.
Tom. I mean, if you don't buy something from Mike, I'd feel bad for that person. I mean, plus the fact he's got that martial arts background. In the back of my mind, I would probably like say, you know what, even if I don't need it, I'm going to get it, man, because I don't want the guy to come back at me or something.
But let's wrap. We got an announcement. We want to let everybody know. You want to put
Okay.
up the
Sure,
link, and
absolutely.
I'll share
Absolutely.
with
So,
everybody.
so you can explain this to everybody about Thursdays. Talk to us about this Thursday thing. What are we talking about, Tom? Because this is Elevate Your Profits now.
Yeah, it's part of what we're doing. Our whole goal and mission is to help you win and succeed. And on Thursday evening at 6, I'm going. I hope I got this right. So It's by registration only. This is a registration link. Create $1 million asset. My background as a financial coach is winning with money. Is you got to understand money, how it works, the instrument, and know the forces that are keeping you from winning. It's not your business and those type of things. So I'm going to cover 7 principles. If you're not aware of how to solve them, you're doomed financially. So it's going to be a 30 to 40 minute presentation about things that you need to know from inflation and taxation, how money works, and time, and those type of things. If you don't understand those principles, the money game is stacked against you. So we'll be just talking about those principles. At the end, there'll be a call to find out what I've been doing in business for all these years, some simple things. The premise here is about how do you create $1 million asset in less than 2 years. And you're not hitting the jackpot. We're not talking about building a huge business and making huge investments. Some things that you would need to do to solve some of the problems to create $1 million asset and to support you long-term financially. It's not investment strategies. It's not what you're thinking. So join us. I believe it's 6:30, Mark, on Thursday evening.
Yes, that is correct. And
Yeah.
let me ask you this, Tom, real quick. So if you have your own business, would this be applicable? Or, even if you're doing pretty good in life and you're making 6 figures plus or beyond, would this be applicable to the people like that as well?
Absolutely, for 2 reasons. Number one, I deal in facts and figures. We look across the board and we look at ourselves, we look at other people successful. I'm going to plant this seed. Less than 3.5% of the American people, whether they're in business, whatever the case, working for somebody else, less than 3.5% of the American people retire with a net worth of $1 million or more. Think about that for a
That's
moment.
profound. Yeah, definitely.
And we're going to share with you why that's happening and how to offset that. How do you plan? How do you make that you don't become a statistic? Because I've been a financial coach for years in the financial service industry, is we live in a culture of illusions and false beliefs about finances, money, how it works. And I'm going to share some things with how the 3.5%ers or more, what they're doing and how they prepare themselves with some very simplistic strategies. And so you definitely want to be on, whether you're looking to be in business, whether you're in business, these principles apply to you. And we're going to cover those principles in a broad brush, and then hopefully encourage you to have some more dialogue with me and Mark. So that's the agenda. We'll keep a suspense out there for you. But
Okay.
definitely join us on Thursday night. There's the Bitly registration link.
Tremendous. So actually, before we leave here, you're going to come across like this guy. You're going to be like Mike and Master Poe. There he is again. See? So I'll throw that out there at you, everybody. And I do want to say thank you so much again for being with us this evening, and we enjoyed having you. And I guess it's that time to shut this thing down, right, Tom?
Yeah, do the exit thing, and we're good. And Mike, thank you very much for being here. You brought to me personally some clarity and some things I know that I could be doing in my communications, the things you shared. So there's a lot of value there. Just want to let you know.
Cool. With that, let's say adios to everybody on this Monday the 7th, and we'll see you next Monday.
Hope you see you Thursday as well.
Yeah, absolutely.